Thanks for being with us throughout the day and coming back again. We had a very hearty discussion a little while ago with Mr. Sanjeev Vakil, a very big brand, HIMT. And now we have another very, very important personality in maritime, and he is none other than Mr. Bhupesh Gandhi, sales manager of and simulation of Wartsila, and he's going to talk to us for the next 20 minutes. Is coming directly live from Singapore. Wartsila, as we all know, it's a huge brand in automation and engineering, and makes some of the best and complicated and yet user-friendly engines and much more for the maritime industry. We have a lot of sailors watching us in YouTube Live as well as Facebook Live. Now on our pages, the Naval Connection. And be ready with your questions. This is the time when we can ask him about the new age engines and what Wartsila has hopes to achieve in the future. So before I call him to speak, and I would just want the tech team to play his introduction, please.
Bhupesh Gandhi, Sales Manager, Simulation, Wartsila Voyage, Singapore. Bhupesh works with Wartsila Voyage, and he is a master mariner and an MBA from the University of Southern New Hampshire. He has impressive credentials in maritime technology and has worked with companies of the likes of Navicomaris, Transas, and Teledata. He has brought tremendous growth to the businesses, and prior to moving to Singapore in 2003, he worked at T.S. Rajendra Chanakya Ispat Industries, now known as ArcelorMittal, IMS Shipping, and Cbus.com 1999, a dot-com venture which was a first of its kind e-commerce marketplace for the Indian shipping industry, subscribed and endorsed by major shipping companies globally. Before joining Wartsila, Bhupesh had founded Group Nautical Private Limited, a maritime technology startup focused on bringing emerging technologies to the maritime industry, such as paperless document management. The primary focus being on blockchain, AI, machine learning, 3D modeling, WebGL, and AR/VR technologies. The Naval Connection proudly presents Mr. Bhupesh Gandhi as a speaker at the Technology in Maritime TIM 2021 Global Virtual Conference.
Hello, Bhupesh, and welcome once again to TIM 2021. We will give you 20 minutes, and then once we hear your presentation and hear you speak on the maritime technologies and Wartsila, we will come back to you, and then next 5 minutes will be an engagement with question and answers. If that's okay, then over to you, Mr. Bhupesh.
Thank you so much, Captain Shaukat. First of all, thanks a lot for giving me opportunity to be at this wonderful conference that you have organized. One of the best so far I have seen on in terms of webinars. And thanks also for the kind words of introduction. Without much ado, since we have paucity of time, let me just do one thing. Let me share my screen and ask the most popular question. Can you see my screen? Please let me know when you can.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. We can see your screen in full screen mode. You can go ahead from here.
All right, fantastic. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning and evening to others who are joining us from other time zones. I'm sure there are a few. And I do hope you all are well, keeping yourself safe. These are crazy times, of course. So the title of my presentation, The New Normal, perhaps is the most common and cliched word these days, brought forward by the pandemic. New normal, you hear it all around everywhere. This is the new normal. But let's start with a very simple question. What was normal? And what has changed in the maritime training before and after the pandemic? So we can't really call after because we are still in it. We aren't across from it. But let's look at it, that what has changed actually. First of all, as we heard from many speakers as well as from Mr. Vakil some time ago, that training is a secondary function and it's being driven by the advent of technology in the maritime industry itself. So, be it electronic navigation, unmanned engine room spaces, autonomous ships, all that's happening is because of one or the other technologies that is coming into the maritime. And thus, the seafarer who will need to operate or work in these environments will need to be trained adequately for that. So that's how the training gets driven by what technology is coming to the maritime industry. It's a long history, of course. All this didn't happen over a day. But for today's session, let's limit ourselves to a shorter span to get a good idea of what's going on and start with a very, very simple question that what has changed over last few years. So if you look at this slide, it's a bit amazing that in last 12 months there have been changes more than what has happened over last 250 years. Sounds amazing, but it's true. So, so you will be surprised again to learn that from the first industrial revolution way back in 1780 to the current, which we call Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution, it was the education which was the slowest in adapting the technologies. Very slow with very little wide scale adaptations. It was 200 years after the steam engine that tech first entered the classroom. Before that, it was just plain classroom and chalkboard. The term e-learning, it first appeared in corporate learning as late as 1998. But good news is that after 2000, there has been a bit of, I would say, uptake of the tech in learning, not only in maritime, but in all different learning arena. And there have been some big investment in LMS and different kind of applications that help in bringing the technology in education. So then came the COVID-19, and which kind of kick-started or pushed everything on a highly accelerated mode, more out of necessity, I would say, as there was hardly any option left. So let's go back to the maritime training. That's our focus today. So if you look at the situation before pandemic, as we said, was principally the classroom, and as we know that some of the better digital projectors or certain things which aided in that, but principally the main, I would say, the mode of training was classroom based of one-to-one or one-to-many trainees, but that worked very well, and we thought that the best solution, of course, it has its own merits. But what happened after we were hit by this disruption, more scenes like what you see on the screen or the way we are connected today. Instead of a conference which we would have normally had with a cup of coffee in hand, we are now sitting in our own places with the nicely connected to each other. So this is what happened, but this can hardly be called a technology adoption because this is more out of necessity and not really a willingness to adopt technology for sake of adopting technology. So saying after having said that, but there is one great technology development, I would say, that is really something which was adapted in maritime training and which has really been good. So let's look at the simulators for a minute, and let's talk about simulators for a moment, because they have really played a really great role in the maritime training. So like this great man said, I do and I understand. You can hear something and forget. You can see and perhaps remember. But when you do something, you understand, as said by Confucius, the great wise man. And that was the underlying principle of how simulators were being built in an immersive and interactive manner. So this training allowed us to train seafarers on very, very risky tasks that wouldn't be able to be performed in a real environment. And you could make the person be absolutely interactive and immersive in such environment. And I mean, I'm sure you know about the zero flying hour simulator where you can train a pilot to actually fly a passenger plane without being on a plane even for a 1 hour. So that is the level of simulation that took place over last few years, and the simulators played a great role. So simulators have been around in the maritime industry as well for quite some time, and they really have helped a lot to train the people in a very efficient and effective manner, I would say. But what happened when we are hit by this pandemic? The most effective and efficient means, so-called, also became out of bound, and we were not left with that option anymore. So what do we do? What's next? What's the solution? Cloud. Of course, the cloud was the natural solution as everything else was moving to cloud. So there was a possibility to move even the simulation to the cloud. So at Wartsila, we had this solution of cloud simulators long ago. It wasn't something we developed when the pandemic came. But as I said earlier, there wasn't much of traction. It was very interesting solution, but it was only stayed as that, and there was hardly any adoption. It's only when the pandemic hit, it created a very quick uptake, also created a huge demand, and we had to make this solution optimum so that it can be used in a big volumes the way it was required now. And from suddenly it became the most sought after solution to train the seafarers in a efficient manner. But what has been revealing to us though is that soon after the remote training got deployed as a critical necessity, it became the preferred mode. It being more efficient and more effective, it became the preferred mode because it was so easy to use, deploy, and it was very flexible. The main thing was the training sessions as well as the results, the training logs, they could be shared amongst various stakeholders on a digital platform very easily. You could really assess people far away. You could do a team kind of team task like bridge resource management, etc. All on the same platform. People joining from different parts of the globe even, and then make these records available to the people who had any interest in this. So this was really interesting. And that also then created the right time and opportunity for us to introduce blended learning that was being contemplated on the back burners anyways. So that initiative got suddenly accelerated. So looking at if we look at the maritime training, the whole scenario, there are two parallel tracks, I think, which most of you will agree. There is one stream which is run by the shipping companies, which they do onboard learning. It could be videos, it could be audio, it could be some printed material, manuals. So this is principally run by the company to the seafarers that are joining their ships. And on the other hand, we have training at the maritime education training centers like HIMT, we heard some time ago. AMET, there are several such institutes which principally deploy classroom as well as on-premise simulators. So these are the two streams that were running. Both have their own methods and learning objectives and systems in place. There is an overlap and interact activity between the two, but to a very small extent. In principally, they are run as two separate systems. And we had at Wartsila, we had a vision to connect the two systems. And that is when we came across in discussion, or we started discussion with this company called OTG. I think you all are aware of Ocean Technology Group, which is essentially the holding company for very well-known companies such as Videotel, Seagull, Terro Marine, and such companies. So we found a lot of things in common, both organizations having similar visions of the future in maritime training, as well as shared goals and objectives. Also, we found that the technology that we are using are complementary yet converging, and they can easily be brought together to create a great value for the whole maritime industry and create what we call a connected maritime learning ecosystem, where the, the ocean learning platform could be used to cater to the seafarer all the advantages of the normal training that is provided through companies, and combined together with the simulator based training coming from the Wartsila. And both, if they could be sync the training records and everything, create a right environment to take forward the blended learning. And the biggest beneficiary of this will be the person who matters most at the center stage, the seafarer. So then the seafarer now could train anywhere, anytime at his convenience, which will bring his required travel to all these centers and everywhere almost to stop, because then he could be trained on all the learning objectives from anywhere where he is on any of the tasks, and pave way for a further enhancement where industry stakeholders such as flag administrators or administration, whosoever has a need to have access to the assessment as well as the training records, could easily be provided access to all this. And this then creates a very for future looking thing where on demand training on the mobile platform could easily be made available, where whenever there is a new technology or new equipment coming on board, all it requires is creating a learning objective on something like this, a seamless learning pathway where a customized training for each individual person would all be brought to one single platform on Ocean Learning platform and be delivered to him through this in a very seamless manner. So whether it's a voyage planning or something required with a new equipment to maintenance or whatever is a new development could be delivered to him through this single platform. And then it also creates the possibility to deliver instructor-led as well as self-directed training on the cloud platform. So if a person is joining, for example, a LNG ship in this case, he could be assigned a task to go through a learning lesson on a cloud platform where he could really assess himself through this, learn through this, and then he could be assessed. And these records of assessment as well as learning.
Bhupesh, sorry to interrupt you. 1 minute.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. No, I mean, just a 1 minute check, sound check, time check.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Okay. Are the slides moving well? Is okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Please continue. I said we just have led 3 minutes, so we will go into the question answer. So if you can kindly wrap up in the next 1 minute. Yeah.
Let me just accelerate. It's just a few more slides left. So this is just creates, as I said, a connected maritime ecosystem that we are really all of us would like to have, where everything is coming to one single place, delivered and monitored as well as available. So I will not go further, but I would like to, the main question here, what arises, which I want to ask or pose here is, does it make sense to go back from here? I mean, we are just doing this because right now we're in pandemic, but assuming that tomorrow, or we all dream of it, that we'll be out of it and there is no more restriction, no more mask, you can go anywhere you like. We would like to go back, and all this development that has happened on this, would it be not needed anymore? So this is something which we need to look at, and I would think perhaps no, because let's look at another example very quickly at that. We had another thing like this. I'm not sure how many of you have passed through this, but sat nav, it was called at that time sat nav, and before that the only way we could fix positions or relied on positions were the ones that were fixed by sextant. And when SatNav came, everyone thought it was a passing phase, because how could you consider any position more reliable than what you take from a sextant? It was like the cardinal thing, and we all relied heavily on this. But once the SatNav came, it got superseded by, of course, GPS, DGPS, and the whole range of electronic navigation system, when you have all the information on your screen, I'm not sure how many people would want to go back to a sat nav, or I mean the sextant. I'm sure even the next generation will ever even get an opportunity to look at this piece of equipment that we all at one time so heavily relied upon. So that's the beauty of the technology. Once it comes in any place, it has so much advantage and efficiencies that it becomes the default standard, and soon it is with the integrated platform like this what we create now is where we find it, call it a new normal, but this becomes the default, and it's very seems impossible to go back to what you were doing before this. The technology made these things so efficient. So let me just conclude it all in just one more slide, that we do agree that pandemic brought opportunity for us to have a rapid innovation in the training as well as, I mean, as other things. There has been certainly a great paradigm shift towards remote learning solutions. Industry is realizing the benefits of blended learning, and I think we all agree it doesn't make sense to go back. So I will just show you a small video on the something which we launched very recently, the smart realities, which is actually an enhanced version of virtual reality, where we have used our years of experience in mathematical models. So what you see on the smart realities are actual mathematical models that come from the experience and learning from the Transas and Wartsila together. So just give me a moment to play a small video for you to, it's a very short video, but just yeah. So it is, as I said, it is using the same functionality in the exercise that you see on a simulator, but it just gives you a broader horizon. You can actually, in an immersive environment, you can do what you do on a simulator, but through your glasses. So you can really have on a tech sim, for example, technology simulator, you can actually deal with the engine, different components and different parts of the equipment, absolutely hands-on ship handling. So all this now what you see here is available on your glasses. So I'm not sure, once you experience this, how many of us would really like to go back to something which is without this kind of technology-based training. So I don't know what you think of this, but I would like to call it the exciting new normal. And I think it's here to stay forever. So thank you very much. And I'm very glad to take any questions on this if you have.
Thank you, Bhupesh, and really, really enchanting presentation. It shows us light ahead and what new technologies. Of course, everybody is talking about cloud simulation, and everybody's migrated to cloud simulation now. I wanted to ask you one very thing. I don't have too much time to ask you many questions, although I would have wanted to, because we have again in a position we're running back-to-back schedules. Yeah. When everybody when everybody is already shifted to cloud navigation, cloud systems, and cloud simulations, is that does it make training easier from on board ships? Like, in the sense, can you do simulation looking at in the future? Can can people who are sailing on ships be doing simulation training from on board?
Absolutely. So we are doing exactly what you said. I don't know if you have some crystal glass in front of you, you can see future, but this is what we are doing right now with a very big, I can't tell you the name, but it's a very big, major international shipping company, and they have very much interested to, this option where the onboard simulator, what we call. So we have something called fleet optimization solution, where all the data is available on the ship. So you can take a historical passage, for example, if you have been to a certain oil terminal in past, and that voyage records can then be transposed to a simulator on board, where they can go through that whole passage and change the variables. For example, this time the weather is different or the draft is different. So all that simulation can be done to have be there before the ship actually goes there. So you do like a predictive you do a predictive analysis. So here you will do a predictive simulation of a voyage that you're going to perform, which is a difficult maneuver or something we have not been there before. So you can have all the port area available and your ship's model, and you can do a maneuver on that in actual conditions with the weather, the sea, and the actual chart. So this is what is the future, that on each ship you have the possibility to do a simulator based voyage before you go into the actual voyage.
Thank you very much, Bhupesh. Although I would have loved to, I don't have much time left for going ahead with this. But then I would strongly recommend everybody to visit the Wartsila booth. We have a Wartsila booth, and then you can put up your questions there, download their brochures, look at the video. They are one of the largest technology companies in the world, and on training as well as on machines and other engineering. We also strongly recommend you to visit the HSBC, the Stormgeo, the Bloom Energy, HIMT, ScanReach, and the OTG booth. So a lot of things you will find interlinked, just like Wartsila has mentioned, Bhupesh mentioned in his presentation, that they are working closely with the ocean technology, and that's what makes this conference so beautiful, because we just don't talk about one company, because it's a joint world. It's a world where everybody is pooling in their resources to make better things and to address global problems. So thank you, Bhupesh, and we will post any questions we get in the platform to you, so you can come back to us with courses. I really thank you, and I want to thank Wartsila for their support, and for TIM 2021. We have a huge event coming up, the Future Skills Maritime Edition 2 in 2nd and 3rd of December, and we'll get back to you. Maybe we can have a longer session then, where we can delve deeper into the aspects of shipboard efficiency and how training can be done on board ships, and training reaching out through cloud to thousands and thousands of seafarers. With that in mind, I want to end this session here, and namaskar, and thanks for being with us in TIM.